Welcome back to the channel, everybody. It's Liberation Day in America. What does that mean for Canadians? Tariffs. More and more tariffs. So I've seen some articles, I've seen some YouTube channels, and I read some articles. I also watched some videos. And from what I can tell, we have anywhere from an additional 10 to 35% tariffs on non-US Mexico-Canadian trade agreement, as well as excluding the 10% baseline from steel, aluminum, auto manufacturing, and copper. But in addition to that, we'll get into it. It's a little bit of math, it's a little confusing, and I don't think everybody is quite on the same page. So without further ado, I do not mean to call you out, Mr. Sunshine Baby, but I follow you, I watch all of your stuff, and you kind of just made it really simple to make my video even simpler. So without further ado, let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. Again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and give a shout out to Mr. Sunshine Baby.
We were expecting Liberation Day in America, announcing tariffs on the entire world. What was said? What happens? What does this mean for Canada? What does this mean for Mark Carney during the election? And what does this mean for Pierre Poilievre in the election? All of that is explained and displayed during this video. But the entire Coles notes, for those that don't want to stick around, I'm not going to hold you hostage for the entire video. Donald Trump just destroyed Mark Carney's entire election strategy and election platform. The Liberals have been campaigning on two things. One, that they're going to remove the carbon tax that they implemented. They've just done that. Gas prices have come down. That's a moot point now, or a moo point. It's a cow's opinion, according to Joey Tribbiani. The second one is the tariffs. You've seen a rise in faux patriotism by the left, waving Canadian flags, saying, hey, we're going to hit back America. We're going to really make them cry. We're going to hurt them as tough as we can. We're going to boo their anthem. You've seen politicians say this. You've seen radical left-wing, woke, ideological people say this. But now that doesn't have any impact because Donald Trump's entire menu of reciprocal tariffs have been displayed, and Canada is not on that list. The only
American steel workers, auto workers, farmers, and skilled craftsmen. We have a lot of them.
Actually, before we get into that, ladies and gentlemen, I do not agree with national anthems. I do not condone it. I do not agree with violence or vandalism and mischief for protesting. Leave that to the Palestinians out east, making themselves look bad, while Canadians just keep looking better and better every day. Don't forget the Freedom Convoy and how we stood strong, peacefully protesting. Yeah, we had loud horns. Get over it. We're not slapping phones out of Canadian citizens' hands. We're not slapping women. We're not having the police ask Canadian citizens not to film in public. This is just sick. It's gross. Do not agree with any of it. However, let the Palestinians out east do it. Just makes them look worse. Hopefully we get our new government in at the end of the month and they'll be domestic terrorists as well. They're probably already foreign terrorists, to be honest. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into Donald Trump here and see what he has to say, and if we can catch a couple different talking points that explains why Canada is still receiving reciprocal tariffs, and then some.
Here with us today. They really suffered gravely. They watched in anguish as foreign leaders have stolen our jobs, foreign cheaters have ransacked our factories, and foreign scavengers have torn apart our once beautiful American dream. We had an American dream that you don't hear so much about. You did 4 years ago, and you are now, but you don't too often, and for many years and decades even, you didn't hear too much about. Our country and its taxpayers have been ripped off for more than 50 years, but it is not going to happen anymore. It's not going to happen. In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. Reciprocal, that means they do it to us and we do it to them. Very simple. Can't get any simpler than that. This is one of the most important days, in my opinion, in American history. It's our declaration of economic independence. For years, hardworking American citizens were forced to sit on the sidelines as other nations got rich and powerful, much of it at our expense. But now it's our turn to prosper, and in so doing, use trillions and trillions of dollars to reduce our taxes and pay down our national debt, and it'll all happen very quickly. With today's act, putting in billions and billions to any company that's for the last number and a half ago with jobs, and so we'll do this. And we're going to show you. So a single because we are being very comically voted percent. That's tariff ripped off with you. Salary.
Resume here. Resume here. Alright, everybody, moving on with the Donald Trump video. Here's where he gets into the sign that he holds up for everybody to see with the tariffs that he's with the countries of the tariff. Here's Donald Trump holding up the sign with all the listed countries, but it's not all the countries, it's just the several highlighted countries he wants to highlight for everybody to see. As most of you should be, or as most of you are aware, there's over 150 countries in the world, and President Trump also mentioned earlier on when he first started the video that they had bigger signs that they wanted to bring out. Signs meaning plural, not just the one. So he brought out the one, it highlighted majority of some countries, but not all of the countries. And here's the sign.
My auto worker friends and my Teamster friends and all of the unions that typically voted Democrat, they're not voting Democrat anymore because worker, whether union or non-worker, they're for the Republicans now. That's what happened. But we will charge them approximately half of what they are and have been charging us. So the tariffs will be, look at that, Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick. Thanks, Howard. So
Yep.
if you look at that, China, first row, China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. So 67%, I think you can, for the most part, see it. Those with good eyes, with bad eyes. We didn't want to bring, it's very windy out here. We didn't want to bring out the big charts because it had no chance of standing. Fortunately, we came armed with a little smaller chart. So 67%, so we're going to be charging a discounted reciprocal tariff of 34%. I think, in other words, they charge us.
Now, I don't know if there's more signs or more videos with other signs in it. However, Yeah, this one doesn't have Canada on it, but that's not what we're paying attention to. We want to pay attention to his words and obviously articles and press releases directly from the White House. So, without further ado, let's get into this. Tariffs work, and President Trump's first term proves it. Date 2025-04-02, April 2nd, 10:34 a.m. for immediate release. Tariffs work, and President Trump's first term proves it. For the first time in decades, the United States will see fair trade as President Donald Trump announced tariffs to level the playing field for American workers and businesses. Despite rhetoric and politicians and the media, studies have repeatedly shown tariffs are an effective tool for achieving economic and strategic objectives, as they did in President Trump's first term. Study in 2024 on the effects of President Trump's in his first term found that they strengthened the U.S. economy and led to significant reshoring in industries like manufacturing and steel production. 2023 report by U.S. International Trade Commission, which analyzed the effects of President Trump's Section 232 and 301 tariffs on more than $300 billion in U.S. imports, found that the tariffs reduced imports from China, effectively stimulating more U.S. production of the affected goods, and had more minor effects downstream prices. According to the Economic Policy Institute, the tariffs implemented by President Trump's first term clearly showed no correlation with inflation and had only a fleeting effect on overall prices. Economic Policy Institute, following the implementation of Section 232 measures in 2018 and prior to the global downturn in 2020, U.S. steel output, employment, capital investment, and financial performance all improved in particular. U.S. steel producers announced plans to invest more than $15.7 billion in new upgraded steel facilities, creating at least 3,200 direct new jobs, many of which are now poised to come online. An analysis by Atlantic Council found that tariffs would create new incentives for U.S. consumers to buy U.S.-made products. Okay, let's get into the good shit here. Oh, fuck, this is the wrong article. Now going to the roll call fact sheet here. Rollcall.com, fact sheet topics. Go to fact base, White House release, White House press release. You'll know that you're there. Calendar. Fact sheet. Donald Trump declares national emergency. (2025) April 2nd, 17/18/01, 5:18 for immediate release on April 2nd, 2025. President Donald Trump declares national emergency to increase our competitive edge, protect our sovereignty, and strengthen our national economic security. Pursuant to reciprocity to rebuild the economy and restore national and economic security. Today, President Trump declares that foreign and economic practices have created a national emergency and is ordered to impose responsive tariffs to strengthen the international economic position of the United States and protect American workers. So this is where we're going to get into some complicated stuff. I'm hoping I'll be able to make it super easy for you. President Donald Trump is invoking his and I don't mean that in a bad way. So this is where we're going to get into some confusing stuff. Hopefully everybody's able to follow along and I'm able to make it super easy and super simple. President Donald Trump is invoking his authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977 to address the national emergency posed by the large and persistent trade deficit that is driven by the absence of reciprocity in our trade relationships and other harmful policies like currency manipulation or exorbitant value-added taxes perpetrated by other countries. So right there, we're going to take a quick pause and talk about that little statement there. Exorbitant value-added taxes. So everybody in Canada is used to it. We don't think anything of it, but I was watching a Kevin O'Leary video, and Canada has something called GST, Government Sales Tax, or HST, Harmony Sales Tax. Unlike the US, they do not have that. So every time somebody from the US goes on, say, eBay or whatever have you, and they're buying something from a Canadian company, they pay most likely they'll pay their PST and as well as the GST, and then anything else for international shipping or international any other fees that may apply when you're shipping internationally. So right there, that's talking about Canada. Exorbitant value added taxes perpetrated by other countries. That's our GST. Using his IEEPA authority, International Emergency Economic Powers Act, Emergency Powers Act authority, President Trump will impose a 10% tariff on all countries. All countries. There's over 150 countries. I'm not going to list them all. Easy to Google search. Canada is going to be near the top. All countries. This doesn't specify all countries, but the countries underneath the USMCA. No, this is 10% baseline tariff on all countries. Boom, baseline. So as I take that, if we already had a 25% tariff on steel, now it's 35. If we had a 0% tariff on anything, now it's 10%. Moving on. President Trump will impose an individualized reciprocal higher tariff on countries with the United States has the largest trade deficit. All other countries will continue to be subject to the original 10% baseline. Impose individualized reciprocal tariff on countries with the United States. So that's going to be including Canada and Mexico. Tariffs will remain in effect until such time President Trump determines that the threat posed by trade deficit and underlying non-reciprocal treatment is satisfied, resolved, or mitigated. Either you drop your tariffs to zero, they have zero tariffs as their reciprocal. If you have a 0% tariff, you're going to get charged a 0% tariff. Or you drop it down to a reasonable percentage, say it's 10% or 20% or whatever you need it to be, as long as it's not in the 200s plus. Treatment is satisfied, resolved, or mitigated. So drop your tariffs, resolved. Reduce your tariffs, mitigated, to be satisfied. Simple, 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 simple. Today's Emergency Powers Act order also contains modification authority allowing the President to increase the tariff if trading partners retaliate or decrease. So if they retaliate, he can increase. If they decrease, then he can decrease tariffs if trading partners take significant steps to remedy non-reciprocal trade agreements and align with the United States on economy and national security matters. So this is probably referring to Canada, to be honest, Canada, Mexico. Economic and national security matters. He wants nothing to do with World Economic Forum. He wants nothing to do with the Canadian Liberals' woke agenda, drug-ridden, crime-ridden streets. So his national security is under threat as long as we have drugs and crime in our streets. Just take a look at the news every day. Well, I guess you can't because it's censored, but we all know what's happening. More and more armed robberies, thefts, vandalisms, home invasions, which is scary. All kinds of home invasions happening. This is our own national security, and then we're getting told by other countries to take care of it. Some goods will not be subject to the reciprocal tariffs. That include articles subject to 50 USC 1702-2 steel and aluminum articles, auto parts already subject to section 232 tariffs, copper, pharmaceutical, semiconductors, and lumber articles. For all articles that may become subject to future section of 232 tariffs, bullion, and 6 energy and other certain materials, other certain minerals that are not available in the United States. Energy is a big word. Energy covers a lot. Electrical energy, nuclear energy, all kinds of energy, hydroelectric energy. For Canada and Mexico, the existing fentanyl migration Emergency Power Act order remains in effect and are unaffected by this order. Unaffected by this order. This means USMCA compliant goods will continue to see a 0% tariff on non-USMC compliant goods. Zero. We'll continue to see a 0% tariff. Non-USMC compliant goods will see a 25% tariff. Non-USMC compliant energy and potash will see a 10% tariff. In the event existing fentanyl migration IEEPA, Emergency Powers Act orders are terminated, USMCA compliant goods would continue to receive preferential treatment, while non-USMC compliant goods would be subject to a 12% reciprocal tariff. So we clearly still have tariffs. Now, what I was talking about, anywhere from 10 to 22 to 35, is that 10% baseline on all countries. So now, is this a 20% tariff for energy and potash, 35% tariff for USMC non-compliant goods? Or, because yeah, this is prior, right? So this order remains in effect, unaffected by this order. So now they're going to, all this right here sees an additional 10%. That's how I'm reading this. I could be wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Either way, we are still subject to a 12% reciprocal tariff, as well as 10% or 20% on energy and potash. And then all non-USMCA compliant goods will see a 25% tariff, potentially, plus that 10% baseline, making that 35. So that's where I got the 35. That's where I got the 22. So a little unclear if the baseline applies and gets added to this, or if these are still separate. I'm taking it as it gets added to it. So now you're looking at 35, 20, and 22, not 12, 10, and 25. Either way, we still got 25, 10, and 12 coming our way, so we're not off the hook. And Mark Carney still has tariffs as ammunition against the United States. I can read the rest of this. However, The link will be in the description. You made it this far. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more. Ring the bell if you want to stay up to date. I'm trying to get as much out here as I possibly can. Help promote the channel. I'm new. Thank you, Mr. Sunshine Baby, who helped inspire me to get started, as well as a few others that I'll end up tagging in my X post. Talk to you guys soon. We'll see you soon. Feel free to reach out. I've been trying to reach out. I just don't want to be a creep and find a way to direct message somebody where I can't direct message them as my accounts aren't verified. I can't direct message. I'm going to cut all this out. So thanks for having me. Hopefully one of us is right, or we're both right, or I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong and you're right. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Sunshine Baby, for the inspiration. Hope you all had a great night. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share the channel, help it grow. Thank you very much. Bye for now.